How you doing, good people? This is the 8-Bit Animal. Let's hop in the Wayback Machine, if you will, and we're going to go back before the NES to a really perilous time in gaming, 1983. This was when Atari allowed a bunch of small companies to flood the market and produce a bunch of bad games on the cheap, and eventually crash the video game market. Well, a company called Games by Apollo was one of those companies. And Games by Apollo had a number of talented programmers working for them, one of which was Tim Martin. Well, after Games by Apollo went under, Tim Martin and some other guys went into business for themselves, literally, because they had no other option. And they started a company called Micrographic Image to do contract work. This contract work would fund them making their own games that would print under their name. Well, the game that they used to fund today's game was an Atari 2600 port based on the horror classic Halloween. When the company picked up the check on that, and they gave Micrographic Image the money that they needed for it, Micrographic Image made today's game. And that game eventually got ported all over the place, including the NES. That game, of course, is Spelunker. Now, Spelunker is a really, really good game. A lot better than the game that funded it. And in this game, you play as a little miner guy who goes into this cave looking for money. He's not trying to rescue anybody, not trying to slay any dragons or any beasts, just trying to find a treasure. A lot like Pitfall. Well, he navigates this cave, dodging environmental hazards and animals that might be trying to kill him, and I don't know what those bats are doing, what they're dropping down. Looks like Buono, but don't want to speculate. You're also avoiding ghosts, and the ghosts show up whenever you linger in one spot for too long or ramble like I do. Anyway, you use bombs and steady platforming skills to navigate this cave to avoid falling, because if you fall too far down, you die. Because this guy is all about having good balance. There are spikes and pitfalls that'll just randomly fall through, and it's a tricky platformer, to say it's so old. Another thing you have to contend with is your oxygen level, because you're underground, of course. And the more you move and the further down you go, the faster your oxygen depletes. You can collect different items that will replenish that oxygen, that will give you a chance to continue down into this cave, to collect keys, to go through doors, and eventually make it to one of the pyramids containing the treasure. Now, this game is extremely popular, still is to this day. And it's been re-released on Virtual Console, on the Wii, on Virtual Console on 3DS. It got an HD remaster for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. There was a spiritual successor called Spelunker World. Then there was another game called Spelunker Party. And then there are games like Steam World Dig and Spelunky that are inspired by it. So Spelunker has a long lineage, and it's a beloved video game. And for my money, it's one of the great classic platformers that predates Super Mario Brothers. Now, you can find copies of Spelunker on pretty much everything, and you can find it everywhere. There were arcade games and sequels to an arcade game, which was interesting to me. You can find, like I said, you can find this game in a number of places, on a number of platforms, in a number of formats. So hunting down a particular cartridge of it or a particular floppy disk of it or what have you isn't entirely necessary. I say just find it and play it and relive some history. This has been the 8-Bit Animal, and I'll catch you beautiful people tomorrow. Tomorrow. Remember when Sega's mascot was a sentient spacecraft with feet and it showed up on the NES because Tengen figured out the lockout chip? We're not supposed to talk about that though, are we?